Asa Butterfield and Mimi Keene had an incredible grasp of their characters and their relationship dynamic, something we even saw in the last season after they were broken up. This is why fans feel like the couple was actually snubbed of their endgame in favor of Otis's relationship with Maeve, which didn't even end up working out. In the first 2 seasons of the show, Otis and Ruby clearly weren't in the same league, as Otis was generally considered a loser around school, and Ruby was the queen bee, which is exactly why the revelation that they started casually seeing each other in season 3 was such a big shock to fans. However, fans loved the relationship, mainly because of the drama it had brought to the table, considering their dynamic and their very opposite personalities. The fact that they come from very different worlds makes the whole thing even more appealing, and it even adds some extra drama by introducing a love triangle to the show. What was even more surprising was the fact that Ruby was the one to make the first move when she noticed Otis during a party. But at the same time, it's not really that surprising, since it's incredibly hard to imagine Otis having that kind of confidence. The appeal of their arrangement was the fact that there was no commitment at first, something which worked for Ruby since she wasn't that kind of person, especially since she wanted to maintain her queen bee image. Seeing Ruby be embarrassed by Otis was also a pretty funny addition to the show, since she was so into him in private, and it also showed that she truly cared for him as a person and not his looks. Otis brought out a lot of feelings in Ruby that we hadn't seen before, and that we probably never would have seen if they hadn't spent time together. Ruby has more than proven that she wants to keep her private life as private as possible, so Otis being in her life not only gave us more of an insight, but also helped Ruby open up for the first time in a very long time. Their relationship was genuinely fun, and one could even go as far as to say that they were only really themselves when they were together. With Maeve, Otis always seemed so tense and scared to make any kind of move, not only because Maeve intimidated him, but also because he seemed to genuinely doubt why she was even giving him the time of day. It sort of ruined the dynamic for a lot of people, especially since it seemed to get so dragged out, and we were always going back and forth with the same issues when it came to those two. They couldn't communicate and could never really be themselves around each other. Maeve had completely different dreams, and it seemed like she was always going to be leaving, which is why the relationship always felt like it was at the edge of a cliff waiting to fall off. But with Ruby, there were never really any expectations, not only since, believe it or not, they had a lot of the same characteristics, but also because it seemed like a relationship that would never work out. All the pressure was already taken out of the equation from the very beginning, and it allowed them to feel more comfortable than we've seen them be with any other characters. Of course, when Ruby started catching some real feelings, it started getting complicated, all because Otis was still hung up on Maeve, whom he believed he would get back together with, despite everything pointing the other way. It what led to their breakup in season 3, and what pushed Otis to continue to pursue Maeve. Many fans think this was a huge error on the writer's side, especially since we got to see how happy Otis could have been in a proper relationship that wasn't being dragged along for seasons at a time. Even by the time Otis and Maeve properly got together, Maeve had to leave for America, leaving Otis all alone, and it put a huge unnecessary strain on their relationship, something that could have been avoided if they had communicated more. All of Maeve and Otis's relationship seems to have been built on miscommunication and the will they won't they trope, which got old by the end of it. Meanwhile, Otis and Ruby, despite breaking up, still seemed to communicate extremely well, even when Ruby was hesitant to help Otis with O and his campaign. Ruby was left entirely on her own in the last season, and the only person she really had was Otis. And after everything they had been through together, they were still great friends, even if they weren't in a relationship. We saw them grow as people together, and if they hadn't been together, it's very possible a lot of their character development never would have happened. Ruby even started to open herself up to more people in season 4, and even seemed to genuinely want to help Otis, even if she had some ulterior motives. Otis learned how to set boundaries while with Ruby, which was not only important in his relationship, but it also became important in other aspects of his life. Back in season 3, when Ruby attempted to dress Otis so he would match her vibe, he did go along with it for a while, but as he realized it wasn't for him, he set a boundary. It was a really proud moment for every viewer to see Otis healthily communicate communicate how he feels for once, and Ruby gave him the space to do so without judging. It's something we never really saw with Maeve, and miscommunication was a huge part of their big conflict in season 4, like when Otis automatically assumed Maeve might like someone else just because she mentioned their friends, and he basically went crazy. But as he started spending more time with Ruby in season 4, it looked as if he was again able to evolve into a healthier version of himself because of the talks they had. When he and Eric started having some miscommunication troubles, they actually talked it out after Ruby opened Otis's eyes about what was happening. Maeve didn't even seem aware of what was happening in Otis's personal life, but we can't really blame her because she was in America at first, and with her mom passing away, things got even more difficult. However, with the way things were going, it didn't seem like Otis would have opened up to her about any of it. Ruby then basically pushed her way into his life yet again, and Otis was able to open up about his issues yet again. Ruby's season 4 arc was all about her history with O, and Otis was the only one who was there for her to listen to what was on her mind. While they're scheming to bring down O because of some really old drama, and because she's apparently a better therapist than Otis can't be the most moral thing they've done in the show. At least they did it together. No one else seemed to support these two in what they were doing, which again proves exactly how much they belong together. They weren't always the best people, but they did bring out the best in each other, and they constantly helped each other evolve in their daily lives. It was very nice to see it again in season 4, even if they were just friends. The writers did give viewers a bit of hope when it looked like they might still hold a spark for each other, but because of Maeve, Otis was again holding back from his true feelings. It says a lot that they woke up cuddling each other that one time, and fans can't get past it. While it's good Otis didn't cheat on Maeve, especially since he's really not the type, fans feel like the second half of the season could have gone differently. Maeve and Otis's relationship started to look extremely doomed, and there wasn't even an attempt at trying to salvage what Otis had going on with Ruby, especially since they could have been very happy together. Fans feel like Otis being so hung up on Maeve almost feels unrealistic when we could see how happy he'd have been with Ruby. It even looks like the way he desperately tries to hold on to Maeve becomes very toxic after a while, which isn't good for any of them. In season 3, he came to terms with the fact that he had to let Maeve pursue her dreams, but then does a complete 180 in season 4 when she chooses to do it again, but without him. Some fans even think it was extremely selfish of him to act so hurt and even shout at his mom for encouraging Maeve, and it almost seems out of character, all because the writers kept wanting to highlight his relationship with Maeve. Even fans of Maeve and Otis are incredibly disappointed with the way they were drawn out for so many seasons, for it to not even work out in the end, especially with how much the show focused on Otis's feelings for her. It's exactly why it feels like Otis and Ruby never got the chance they deserved, just so the Maeve plot could keep going, but at the end of the day, it feels like a slap in the face for both fandoms to have Otis be alone. It looks like the development Otis went through with Ruby was cast aside so that he and Maeve could continue the toxic dynamic they were slowly building, and by the end of it, didn't even matter. Perhaps if the show had gotten a 5th season, things could have been wrapped up better with both couples, but seeing as that's very unlikely to happen, fans were mostly left disappointed. Who do you think should have been the endgame? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.